bookshop, it's the bookshop, it's the bookshop of Beverly Farms.
Howdy, everybody. Once again, this is Sam Feichel, your host of John Updike's Ghost, your favorite little podcast about reading, writing, bookstores, and people getting killed in mysterious ways. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and the co-owner of the Bookshop of Beverly Farms, Miss Hannah Harlow. Hannah, no one has poisoned you in the time since I've seen you at the New England Crime Bake, I'm hoping.
No, I'm here. I'm alive and well.
Excellent.
But we did learn, I don't know if I actually learned a thing or two about murder, but we hung out with a lot of people who know a thing or two about murder.
It's true. The New England Crime Bake is a fantastic little conference that we have now been the official booksellers for the past 3 years. And to be fair, it could probably use some new attendees. So let's spread the word about it, because they've bought some of these books that we're bringing already and they don't need them. So we need new attendees. And if you love mysteries, be they cozy or not cozy, stab you in the eye or poison in the drink.
There's a lot of poisoning going on.
Yeah, you would like the Crime Bake. I met somebody who is a murder consultant from Texas.
I love that. And as I mentioned to her, it reminded me of Elly Griffiths' books.
Right.
Because she wrote one about a murder consultant who got murdered.
Whoa. And isn't that ironic?
Yes.
You wouldn't
She's
think.
very good. They should get Elly Griffiths to come. Except it's New England. I think they're New England crime writers.
Oh, they're all, supposed to be New England writers. But anyway, that was very enjoyable. Some nice books that were there. The keynoter was Deborah
Crombie. Yes.
She has like 19 books and people seem to really dig her stuff. What was her new one called? I can't remember.
Yep. It's a hardcover.
It's a hardcover.
Still remember.
Regardless, her name is Deborah Crombie.
She's great.
Yeah. And, I was flipping through the books. I would say that I did not know that there were so many niche genres of mystery books. One woman writes about a detective who is also a cheese store owner, a cheese expert detective.
I know you love the cozies with the that have their little, niche.
Yeah,
so we had Cheese Shop.
Yep, Cheese Shop.
I didn't see any knitting ones there this year, but there were a bunch of foods. There was a panel about like foodie mysteries.
Oh, so that's why.
The Cheese Lady was on that one.
Cheese Lady.
And there were a couple others.
What was that? Barbara Ross was her name, right? The Cheese
Barbara
Lady?
Ross was a different author. Moss was the cheese.
Oh, Moss. Barbara Ross. Somebody Moss. Cheese Lady. I would say from reading, I read the first chapter of at least 50 of the mysteries that were on display there. And I would say that they cut to the chase rather quickly. The murder happens like on the first 2 or 3 pages of
page one. It's like, boom.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe we could build up to it a little bit. As it would have been my feedback to some of them. It's like, why do I care this person is dead? Give me a little foreplay before.
You want a little lead-in.
Just a little. I don't know. I believe the first sentence in one of the books was, another murder had happened.
Oh.
Something like that. And I was like, okay.
Do you think that was, book 6 in the series, maybe?
Well, I'm sure it was. But, I was encountering it for the first time.
Right.
It was also cool. Alex Segura's books were there. And so we had Marvel there. It was like a Spider-Man mystery. So I really felt like there was a wide range.
Thanks for the
There was a wide range, and there was some nonfiction. There were a couple of craft books, and then we were just talking about this book called Junk Science by Chris Fabricant.
Oh, that was a book after my anti-carceral heart, as I recall.
Was it?
Yeah, I think
it's Junk Science in the American Criminal Justice System.
Right. It's like all these prosecutors are like, oh, the DNA ties them to the thing. And then they're like, oh, actually, 20 years later, it turns out we had bad science on that. And we locked the guy up for 20 years. Oops, sorry. We thought DNA was infallible. Turns out it's not. Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what's prison?
So that was a nonfiction book that I think would greatly inform some of these writers. So that's cool.
I agree. So I didn't read any mysteries for my personal selection this week, did you?
Wait, I kind of did. I wouldn't put this book, it's not in our mystery section, but there actually is a murder there is a mystery element to it of like, how did this guy die? And you do find out by the end.
Well, lay it on me. What is it?
Okay. It's called The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I really like this book.
Say that again because I interrupted you.
Yeah. The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. And I had read a book by Adrienne Young in the YA category called Fable, and I was a big fan of that book.
Yeah.
And then Adrienne wrote like a bunch of other books in the Fable universe, and I didn't get into those as much. But she seems very prolific. And so then she has this book, which is a book for adults. And I actually didn't take a chance on it because I took a chance on her last adult book and we didn't sell any copies.
By take a chance, you mean buy a copy?
Buy a copy for the store.
Right.
Right. So then this book came out and then it was on the New York Times bestseller list. So then I thought, well, okay, I must have missed something. So then I read it and now we do have it in the store. Because I really, really liked it. It had strong Time Traveler's Wife vibes.
That's high praise. In what way is it about eternal love and the sacrifice you make for it?
There's time travel and there's romance. Ooh, and it's like a good, solid romance.
Time travel, romance, and mystery.
And murder mystery.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's set in the South. The main character is like a flower farmer, and her family has been flower farmers for many years. Mm-hmm. So it starts in 2023, and the main character is this woman who's like, gosh, I don't know, like 35 or something. And she knows the curse of all the women in her family is that they go mad, right? So like you get to a certain point and you just start to like kind of lose your mind, and her grandmother, who's just passed away, described it as living in two worlds. Ooh. So she was like, she just got kind of out of it. But she made it a very long time, the grandmother who raised the main character. Mm-hmm. And so the main character has started to like, she thinks the madness is coming on because she's like seeing a door in the fields, and she's like having what feel like memories, but she knows has never happened before. Like, she'll hear a man's voice, or she'll like smell cigarette smoke and there's like nobody there or whatever.
Sounds like she is perhaps displaced in time.
Right. So you soon come to discover that the Farrow women can time travel. So there's a door that appears to them. And if they walk through that door, they can travel to another time. But nobody has given June any information.
No, so Graham didn't give her a heads up.
Graham gave her no information.
That seems uncool.
Except that by the end, you realize why. And it's a really good reason. Like everything comes together in the end. It's great.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So she ends up traveling back to 1951 and turns out she's already been there. So a future June, a June from 2024, traveled to 1946 and lived in that time period for like 5 years.
Wow.
And then left in 1950. And then 2023 June came to 1951.
Gotcha.
So I liked it because she was clueless, because, right, like a future self experienced all this stuff. So there's no way for her to know it. And so
because she hasn't been there yet.
She hasn't been there yet. But the storyline is that like the longer she stays in 1951, the more she starts to remember things that her future self experienced from like 1946 through 1950.
One of the basic rules of time travel is that you cannot talk to yourself.
Right. So she's not, but so.
Can't be in the same time at the same time.
They keep discovering how June discovered this like loophole. And so something's happening where her
usually there's like a
space-time
fraying. Continuum complosion or something.
Right. I mean, she's not talking to herself necessarily. They just describe it as like she's acquiring the memories of her future self.
Right.
Before
I'm not going, if I am a woman in 2023, I am not going back to 1946. It's not going to happen.
Doesn't seem like the best idea.
You know, like,
right.
War, post-war.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's where the love of her life is. So
in 1946?
Yeah.
Does she know that ahead of time?
No.
So she just goes back to 1946, meets the love of her life, and sticks around.
She goes back to 1951, right? Yes, and realizes that she's been married to this dude, and then she's like, "Well, I'm just going to peace out. Like, I got to find my way back because whatever." But then she sticks around and starts to learn more and more and more stuff, and I don't want to give away the ending.
Yeah, it's like a time wants to happen sort of thing. I like the time wants to happen. You can't change time,
right? So anyway, it was good because I was thinking about, and I know I've said it on this show in the distant past, that I really dislike books like Girl on a Train, where the narrator is just like, "Oh, I'm a drunk, and so I was blackout drunk when the murder happened, and I just don't remember, but I'm going to remember at the end of the book." And you're just like, "Okay, well, I'm just now going to wait for the end of the book for you to remember whatever." And it's all just, you feel the authorial hand manipulating you, and I hate that. But this was like the same exact thing where I was like, I'm just waiting for June to remember, but I was like okay with it because like the author set up the story in a way that I was just like, I can live with this, and I'm like happy with how this is going and cannot wait to find out what happens.
I like it. I'm going to have to read it. Yeah. Sounds good. The book that I read has nothing to do with time travel, but it is about old people.
Okay. My book was not about old people.
Well, if you've experienced a lot of time when you're old.
Okay.
It feels as though you've traveled in time. This is actually my third book of the year that involves 70-plus-year-old men having sex, which, I don't know why that's a literary trend, but...
Is this the Paul Auster book?
It is the Paul Auster book.
Yes.
How did you know?
I don't know.
So you'll recall that I read the E.M. Coetzee book, The Cellist, which was about an old man.
I believe it was called
sex.
The Pole.
The Pole.
Whatever.
What did I say? The Cellist? The Cellist is a different book by him. The Pole, which is such a much better metaphor. And then the second one was the Richard Ford book, Be Mine. And that was also, he was having sex with the sex worker. And here we have...
I didn't know that, but great.
Yeah. So here we have Paul Auster, another old writer who apparently wishes he was having more sex. And it's one of the, so we had many hours with which to chat about our literary preferences during the Crime Bake. Yes. And this falls into the category of book about writers by writers talking about writers about writing.
There are so many of those.
Not just a writer, but a professor. It's a professor-writer book. So Paul...
subcategory. Yes.
Paul's avatar here is named Baumgartner, which is the name of the book. Mm-hmm. And Baumgartner has lost the love of his life, his wife of many years, to a tragic accident in the surf on Cape Cod. She went into the surf at the end of the day when, hey, we said there's going to be bad waves, and the wave crashed down on her and broke her back, and she died. It was a very random way to die, but that's the way Baumgartner
is. So bizarre. I don't think of Cape Cod as being that violent of a surf.
I know. Hence the surprise by Baumgartner. But it's like, it's a very Paul Auster book, very literary. His wife was also a writer. She was a poet. So like he'll be going through her old writings and then come across one of her poems and reproduce it. So you get like Paul Auster meta poetry of, this is the poetry written by the dead wife of his avatar or whatever. I mean, I'm sure Paul's wife is not dead. I haven't looked into it. And
I don't know if he's still married to Sheila Heti, but
I don't know.
She's also a famous writer, and they were once married anyway.
So clearly he was just way off the reservation here on his story planning. But so anyway, he meets a younger professor. They have some fun sex a couple times. She decides that she does not want to be with an old man like Baumgartner. And then at the end, he is preparing for a grad student to come and study his wife's poems. And then the book just ends.
Not Sheila Heti. Siri Hustvedt. My bad.
That is your
Anyway.
bad. Good Googling while I was talking. Nice job.
You're welcome.
It's a, beautiful little book. I would say it's, I'm a huge Paul Auster fan. I should say Music of Chance is one of my favorite books. I thought 4321 was genuinely like genius. Super, for people who don't know, 4321 was his last big novel. And that piece was the 4321 referred to these 4 different timelines that he created where his characters made different choices and he created different futures and endings for them. And it was super cool.
I like books like that. Like I've read a bunch that I really appreciate, but I know a lot of people don't really love those, like alternate time, like we're exploring alternate timelines.
Yeah, I just thought it was really cool, the ripple effects of decisions you make. This book is just like the opposite of that, is just the classic, simple, sort of meditative piece about growing old and what we're
grief and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of grief and, how we process our grief and, just being a sad old dude who just drives out in the countryside and kind of gets lost at the end. And then the book's over. And that's the end of the first part. And you don't know if there's really going to be more parts or...
Oh, you think it might get continued?
I don't think so. No, I think definitely not. But,
okay.
It's just like one of those things, just like, why did you write that then? Like, just, there's like lots of, it's very, very meta, very self-referential, very, sort of living within this whole academia of literature. I think for like hardcore literature nerds, it's the type of book that's not really written very much anymore. And I think part of the reason why is because people are tired of reading books about 70-year-olds and having sex with younger women. But,
but maybe there's an audience for that.
It worked for like the Wonder Boys, although he wasn't 70, whatever. But it's like Wonder Boys without any weed. I don't think. All
right, that's a good description. I can use that in my hand selling.
Good, yeah. Actually, yes, that's solid. Yeah, it's like Wonder Boys if like they didn't do all the cool, fun sounding stuff.
Great, that sounds super good.
Hey, I read it. I think I've read everything he's ever written. And the thing is,
everything he's ever written.
I mean, I'm pretty close. Like, I read all of his stuff, and like, he's actually awesome at grief. I'm spacing on the name of the book that he wrote about the man whose son dies. I'll put it in the notes, but like he is. I
could start Googling again.
His internal dialogue is really great, and it's just. I don't know. For this one, it just felt like half an idea to me. It didn't feel like a full idea, but it's like an interstitial. It's a nice book.
Great. I have no transition. My next book is Down Here We Come Up by Sara Johnson Allen.
Oh, yeah.
And I really like this book, too.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying that.
So I've actually been sitting on this galley for a while. And the book's out, booking out in August. But I've had this advanced reading copy because it turns out, surprise, Sara lives in my town.
In Ipswich.
Unbelievable. I know. So people had started talking, someone like at the beginning of the summer was like, do you have this book in stock? And then I looked it up and I was like, no, it doesn't come out till August. And they were like, well, she lives in town and we're friends. And so then it, turns out like our kids play cello together and soccer together and stuff. So anyway, we have booked an event with her here in the shop on November 30th. And it was high time I read the book. And I saw her talk. We sold some books at an event she did at the Ipswich Public Library a couple months ago.
Right. I was about to say, didn't we do an event with this book already?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So that was her hometown event.
Right. At the Ipswich Public Library. Okay.
Yeah. And
now I'm coming around.
So at that event, she talked a lot about just how the book came to be in it. She said she's been working on it for 15 years. And reading it, I can tell in a good way. Like, I think, you could hear that and be like, oh, you can tell she's been working on it for 15 years? That doesn't sound
years. Good. All right.
But I mean it in like the best way. Like, I just feel like her descriptions are really beautiful. Her character development is like spectacular. It's like you're reading about, so it's the main character is Kate And her mom, I think her mom comes off as like the strongest, kind of like most well-rounded character. She's this con artist, and she raised Kate and her twin brother like on her own in North Carolina, in this like small ramshackle family home that was next to a bigger house on a farm. And the next door neighbor kind of helped raise her because her mom was always like doing shady things and just always scheming to like make money. She never had like a real job or whatever.
I love con artist stories. I used to love that movie, Grifters. Oh, that was a great one.
Yeah. So Jackie is a con artist, and so the descriptions of Jackie are amazing. And you can just tell she's like really put a lot of heart and attention into like every part of this book.
Yeah. I love the title too.
Yeah.
The title is killer.
Yeah. So it's a line from it's a phrase in a sentence in the book, like halfway through. And so you get to it and you're like, ah, cool. Like I always kind of love that when you're like, oh, that's where the title came from.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that too.
So Kate so it was funny reading this right after the June Farrow book, because like Kate is also like a flower person. Like she works in a greenhouse.
We're growing flowers all over the place here.
Yeah. And she's from the South. So then the book starts up in the Boston area where Kate and her brother have like absconded and left her mom. They haven't seen her in 8 years. They haven't talked to her in 8 years. And the brother like got a scholarship to Harvard, and Kate is a high school dropout, or no, I think she maybe graduated, but never went to college, and just got like a rich boyfriend and a job in a greenhouse. And from the beginning that she was pregnant when she was 17, and she had a baby and gave it up for adoption. So she gets a call from her mom who's like, I need your help. And the mom lures her back home saying, I know where your daughter is, and I'll give you that information if you come help me with this project.
Liar.
Then the project is, so Kate gets down there and she realizes her mom has this new scheme, which is helping migrant workers come from Mexico, and she has a partner. They help.
Oh, wow. She's a coyote? What is that they call those guys?
She's not the coyote. She's not like bringing them across the border. But she and her like business partner, who's a Mexican woman, once people are on the side, she helps them like find work and places to live and stuff.
Well. As long as she's not putting them in the box truck, I guess that's fine.
No, she's kind of helping them once they get off.
Okay.
And are like broken. So it's like actually seems like not a bad thing to do. And Kate keeps being like, well, what's in it for my mom? Like she never does anything out of the goodness of her heart, or like she's not like out to help people really. But so her business partner, the mom's business partner, has kids who are stuck in Mexico. And so they want Kate to go get the kids. And if Kate because Kate now, she stole her boyfriend's Audi and has nice clothes from living with a rich boyfriend. So they're like, you look respectable. No one's going to question you.
Right. Yeah.
Go get the kids. And if you bring the kids back, we'll give you the address of where your daughter is.
Still kind of need a passport and stuff though, right?
Well, there are a lot of complications. And that's why the book is 250 pages.
That's solid. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's good.
I like that. Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. Well, both of the books that you have enjoyed sound as though they have like plots where there is like rising action, and then that action sort of crests. And
plot and like good writing.
Denouement,
like amazing
sort of thing. So the Paul Auster was written very well, plotless. Now I'm going to talk about two books that I did not finish. This is going to be the middle section of today's episode. Jason has said that I am too critical, but I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Jason being my husband.
Yeah, I'm just reading books in general like that I think are going to be good. And then, so
turns out they're not. Yeah.
First one is part of my go to the library project. So I went to the library, I returned Chris Paolini's book from last time, and his book was out. So someone was reading it. I could not choose that one. So I was like, oh, look at this one from Chuck Palahniuk. Palahniuk? Do you know how to say Chuck's last name?
I actually don't really know, but I think you're pretty close.
It's close enough. He's the guy that wrote Fight Club. So the first thing that I have to admit is that I do sometimes get him confused with Chuck Klosterman, who's like a totally different guy, but has the name Chuck and writes books.
Yeah, I think very different. But
yeah, Chuck Klosterman
cool.
writes like feel-good books about, hey, remember that stuff in the 80s? This Chuck writes disturbing stuff. And I mean, I knew he was the Fight Club guy. The book is, I actively disliked it and I felt bad about myself for reading it. It's like his shtick, I guess, I've read up on him a little bit more now, is that he's trying to be provocative, right? He's often like very like shocking, I guess, stuff. So the central character in this book, it's a first person narration. He is one of two brothers that live in a rich person's home in Wales. And they have like servants, butlers, and whatever, but it's contemporary. They have phones and cars or whatever. And you can't quite tell like how old they are. And it comes out that they are these like man children. And there's just like this constant stream of not even like profanity, but like, you know, references to like really heinous sexual assault and murder. And they dropped a chandelier on the butler and they knifed the gardening guy and, you know, I don't know, dropped a piano on, I don't know, like I can't even remember all the ways. And it turns out they're part of like this family that kills, they're like assassins, I guess, but like the people that they supposedly assassinated, like, you know, oh, we did the Kurt Cobain job and, you know, oh, Kurt Cobain didn't get murdered, he killed himself. But did he? I don't know. But like there's no
Did that part work? Because that sounds like, oh, maybe I could like get into like, oh, we're making up.
But they
like,
don't really do
some
any
conspiracy
of that.
theories.
Right. So if we got like a scene where they traveled to Kurt Cobain's house and like pulled off the Kurt Cobain murder without anybody knowing and making it look like a suicide, that would have been great. But no, you get like this little path like, hey, remember the Kurt Cobain job? And then that's it. There's no more. The rest of it is just like the nonsense of them in their little nursery. You know, and it's just like one of these books where they just repeat the same phrases over and over and over again. And like one of them is they're watching like a Richard Attenborough narrated nature show about Australia, and the little baby kangaroo tries to get into the mother's pouch and doesn't make it and dies in the dust. And so there's lots of talk about the kangaroo and the dust, and I'm not a kangaroo and you're not a kangaroo and we're kangaroos. And it's like just completely nonsensical. Nothing happens. But they're constantly talking about, you know, raping one another and, you know, just like, I don't know. I really don't know. And so
sounds very unpleasant.
I got like 40 pages in. I was like, it's not good. And like, I'm impossible to offend. Like, I'm not offended. I'm just bored. Like nothing's happening. Like, why are we, what am I supposed to, I don't like any of these characters. So I went online. I was like, does it get better? You know, and just like kind of looked for reviews of this and people are like, oh, there's a big turn in the last 30 pages. But there isn't really. They just go to jail and then they have more like awful things getting passed around by the inmates.
So you skipped ahead to see
I read the last 30 pages and I was like, it's the same thing, but in jail. Oh, hey, wow. There's like a little interlude in the middle where they like steal cars and smash them up. And so like, I'm like, well, what do people, so I actually went to Goodreads, something I've never done.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I want to know if there's a real person who enjoyed this, you know? So I went to Goodreads, which I've never done. And there were many people, right? So it was like a 2.5 stars, like people didn't like it, but there were
2.5 stars really bad.
Right. So there were, I know, that's what I'm saying. Nobody liked it. But there were these Chuck apologists who would like give it 5 stars and be like, oh my God, one of the funniest books I've ever read. Like just hilarious. I was laughing out loud all the time. And it's like, so you're laughing out loud at like, hey, I knifed that guy for being, I don't know. I don't even really want to say the words because it just cheapens our podcast to like, you know, it's just like this horrible things like, you know, and
it sounds not great.
And I was just like, who is laughing at this? Like, I didn't think, but most of the people were making the same, it's just like dull. It's just like nothing happens, you know, and you're just bored. I was just like turning pages. Like, does anything happen? I don't know. I thought it sucked.
Okay. I think that's a fair DNF.
See you later. So then the second one I was actually really excited about. I actually purchased this book for my wife for Christmas. She didn't
Last
read
year.
it last year. We have a lot of books. She hasn't read it yet. It's on the pile.
Yet.
I
Now
bought
she's
it.
never going to read it.
Maybe she will. I don't talk to her about this. Don't listen to the podcast.
Don't listen to this episode.
But anyway, so I bought it I was up in Bangor shopping for Christmas. I went into the Briar Patch, shout out, awesome bookstore in Bangor, Maine, should you ever want to visit one. And I was like, oh, this was, I think, what did it win? It won the National Book Award, or it was like top?
It was named a New York Times 10 best. It was one of the 10 best books of the year.
One of the 10 best
by
books
the New
of
York
the year.
Times.
So I was like,
also a best
awesome.
book of the year by the New Yorker and Vogue.
Okay. All right. So it's for somebody. It's not for me. So this one is narrated in the first person, but there are no paragraphs or dialogue markers of any kind. It just, it's just blocks of text. Yeah, which I'm fine. I can deal with that. It's not a problem for me. But it's in this like conversational way of speaking, like so it starts off like as a middle school girl speaks, lots of asides, but there's no commas or punctuation to let me know those asides are coming. So you have to like get into her voice and read it in her voice. And then you can kind of get how the pauses are going. Then it jumps 20 years in the future. And then she's telling me, so the part that I gave up on, because I just couldn't find it in myself to care, is the plot point we were encountering right now is a woman who is trying to remember the details of a character that she wrote 20 years ago. And she can't quite remember, but she thinks this character did this and she thinks that character did that. And she can't really remember if it was set in Vienna, but it doesn't matter. And I was just like, I don't care. I don't want to know about this character. I don't understand why I would care about a writer.
Fictional character talking about a fictional character that they actually can't remember.
It's just one of these things. It's like, it's
so
another
weird.
one of these like, meta turtles all the way down is like, I guess you get like literature points for being just so obscure and, like maybe it says something by the end. I have no idea why it's called Checkout 19. I don't care. I made it. So we'll see where I'm at. I'm on page.
There's another book about writers too.
On page 78.
An author.
Yeah, page 78. And I parachuted out. I'm not going to finish it.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could be the best. And it feels an awful lot like what happens in the music industry sometimes, where if it is dense and difficult to read and like annoying, it gets like literature points, and people are like, oh, it's so good. It's like sometimes, I just don't think it works. I think, Claire Louise Bennett, who wrote Checkout 19, is probably a really good author, but I need a little more substance. I couldn't handle it and I bailed.
Okay,
so there you go,
fair.
Jason. That's all the positivity for today.
Wait, I have one more book to talk about.
I also have one more book that I like, so I'm saving it. So why don't you talk about another book and then I'll finish up.
Okay, well, my next book is The Hotel Nantucket by Elin Hilderbrand.
Oh, and by the time people hear this podcast, we will have had our event with Elin.
We are having an event with the Elin Hilderbrand and the Meg Mitchell-Moore on Tuesday, November 14th. We have 250 people scheduled to come. They have bought tickets to come to our event.
Amazing.
Which we had to rent a theater at the Endicott College campus because obviously 250 people can't fit in our little store.
No, it would be a little tight squeeze.
It'd be tight.
Shop.
So this is like a big deal for us.
It's a big deal, 100%.
I'm a little nervous. It's tomorrow night as we're talking about this, and just want everything to go smoothly.
You know how rambunctious those Elin Hilderbrand fans can be. So I hope you hired security.
I hope you're being serious because I think they can be rambunctious.
Oh, really? They're going to be sneaking wine pouches in, or what's happening here? Box wine snuck in the pockets?
I mean, actually, Endicott would probably get mad at us, but so don't do that. But when the tickets went on sale, like,
they were
it was complicated.
It's true.
We sold out in 48 hours.
We could have done better with the articulating how to buy a ticket instructions, probably.
Probably. But it was going to be complicated no matter what for various reasons, which we don't need to bore everybody with.
No.
But multiple people like kind of bought tickets and didn't follow the directions, and so didn't give all the information they were supposed to give. And then they like followed up in an email and was like, I'm so sorry. I acted like this was a Taylor Swift concert and that you were going to sell out. And I just had to like hit buy as quickly as I could. And so I apologize. And then here's the information you need.
Now we know what it's like to be Ticketmaster.
Yes.
I'll never criticize Ticketmaster again when their servers crash.
Yeah. So Elin Hilderbrand is the Taylor Swift equivalent of the book world.
Who knew?
It turns out.
I did not know. I admit that I was skeptical. Hannah said, are you sure we only want to do 250 seats? There's a 500 seat option. And I was like, why don't we see if we can sell more than 5 tickets? Because we've never really demonstrated that we could do that before.
You have little faith.
This was before the Andre Dubou event, I think. But we didn't sell tickets to that either, really.
We didn't sell tickets. We took reservations.
We sold
real tickets.
A ticketed event. And we sold it out in 48 hours. And doesn't Sam look like a dummy? We should have had that 500 seat stadium banged
always
out.
Listen to your sister.
God,
anyway,
terrible.
I read The Hotel Nantucket.
Yeah, so you thought maybe you should read one of these Elin Hilderbrand books to see what the fuss is all about.
Yeah. So her most recent book is called The 5-Star Weekend, but I started with The Hotel Nantucket because it was a paperback, and I actually enjoy reading paperbacks more than I enjoy reading hardcovers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was super enjoyable. I understand the hype.
You said it's very catty.
Gossipy. Gossipy is what I said.
Gossipy.
So there's occasionally you get this like kind of third person plural narrative where it's like kind of the people of the island are talking about events on the island. So it's like, and they're just kind of like relaying the gossip, like, oh, this is what this person is saying about this person, and this person's cheating on their husband, like da da da. So you have like, so there are a lot of characters, and it was like it was like almost 400 pages, because you get like various characters, like full stories. But the main character was Lisbeth, who was hired to be the manager of the Hotel Nantucket, which was like a new hotel opening in like a renovated space.
Right.
So basically this billionaire from England renovated the hotel in like a super beautiful way and hired Lisbeth to like manage everything. And so she hired a bunch of people. So you get all the employees' stories.
Right. I'm having a hard time not conflating it with the Hotel New Hampshire. I'm sorry to say.
So different. So different.
I love the Hotel New Hampshire. That's one of my favorite books.
But there are no bears and there's no incest.
I was really remember there were bears.
Book,
I was like, oh, imagine when a bear comes raging through the Hotel Nantucket. That would be awesome.
There are no bears. That would be awesome.
I think that should be one of the questions, bro. Did you consider in Hotel Nantucket adding a bear just for the awesome crossover potential with John Irving?
I think we should write the mashup book.
Yes. It's just like the Pride and Prejudice and Sea Monsters. We could do
Hotel New Nantucket. I don't know what the mashup would be. It's not a very good title.
Hampshire.
But it's just like, it's punchy, like, and it moves, and there's just like drama and secrets revealed. But it's just really good and fun. Like, I totally get why everyone's like, this is a good beach read. Like, because you get super involved in these people's lives. Yeah.
People are really worried because it is as though Taylor Swift has announced she will stop putting out records.
Oh, yes.
Ellen will only write, she's going to write 20 books and then be done, is the story I heard. And she's already written 19. The last one is the last one.
The last one's next year.
Next one's the last one. Done. She's out.
Yeah. I know. It's very sad.
Do you think?
I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.
I was about to say,
is she really going to leave us?
I don't know.
Hanging?
It's like, Bob Dylan converting the gospel or something.
She might take a break. I mean, she's doing like 1 to 2 books a year for a long time. Like, I could see her, I'm done. And then like maybe 5-10 years from now, she's like, hey, I wrote another book.
Yeah. Hotel New
That would be
Hampshire.
legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hotel New Nantucket.
Well, I know that event is going to be fabulous. I'm sorry to miss it. But my book is about a performer who has events. You gave me this new John Prine book. It's called
Oh, yes.
Prine on Prine, Interviews and Encounters with John Prine. It's edited by Holly Gleason, who is a music industry person. She was John's manager for a little while, was on tour with him, like represented him. And he was, kind of a, outsider his whole time. He, after being on a major label for a few albums, he was one of the first to like start his own album and kind of buck the label system in the 70s when nobody was doing that. And, I love John Prine. I sing John Prine songs. I was lucky enough to see him very near to the end of his life in Merrill Auditorium in Portland. And the guy is a legend, and there's really good reason why everybody loves him. This book is interesting. I think I might be the specific target audience for it, in that it is a collection of articles written about, or basically interviews with John Prine that appeared in various magazines, and actually even like Good Morning America. And there's like the script from that and stuff. So you see like how all of these people wrote about John Prine, and it's so funny to read it and see like the stories piled up and the way that everybody pulls out the same details, and you see how cliches get created and why an artist might buck against those cliches. And you see like him getting sort of more and more comfortable, but giving much better answers to people who ask much better questions. And, it's really fascinating. He was just such a humble and down to earth guy. And
so there's no new material, really. Like no commentary.
No, there is
material.
There's like a little introduction to each article where she kind of hypes it up a little bit, or sometimes she gets a little thought from the writer or interviewer. So it'll be like,
cool.
This is one of my favorite interviews.
Yeah.
Never more than like a page or two, though.
Nice. That's perfect.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. And they're in chronological order, so you kind of see him getting older. And although I think
the evolution of his career.
I think she goes back in time. I haven't finished it all the way, and I wonder. No, she never goes, because he had cancer for a while, and there's basically no pieces on him having cancer. And I think that was one of the saddest things. Is I think he got sick and like he was kind of in a down period, and nobody really paid attention to the fact that he had cancer, and he sort of lost his voice, and he comes back with a new voice, and then all of a sudden he put on new albums and everybody loved it. And there'll just be like these passing references to a battle with cancer he won last year or something. Although he didn't, he ended up dying of COVID. But I don't know. It's if you are a consumer of music journalism and like John Prine, this is like 100% knock it out of the park in your alley. It might be a little obscure for like your average, just music.
I think, as maybe an average music listener, hopefully slightly above average. But when he died, I think it was this moment of like, oh, I didn't really know who this guy was, but everybody who knows about music knew who he was. So I think he was kind of a discovery for many people when he died.
No, I think that's true, because I think his biggest hits were often covers by other people, like Angel from Montgomery he wrote, but Bonnie Raitt obviously is associated with that song. And Unwed Fathers is like his song, but I think that's like more like Loretta Lynn's song, or Tammy Wynette. I remember one of them. But like he was a songwriter too. Like anybody who writes music really respects him, because he just like kind of pulled off some stuff that's like really hard to pull off. Especially he does funny in music alongside serious songs, which I think is incredibly hard to pull off. Like I hate 99% of funny music, but he's like, really subtle about it and kind of biting and satire, and also just super down to earth, real people guy, So
cool.
If you don't know John Prine, listen to his stuff, and you should start with an album called Bruised Orange.
Great recommendation. Okay, that's all the books.
I think that's all the books that we've got. And again, we have gone really far.
It's just because we're reading so much.
We are. I'm reading a lot. I don't know.
it's mid-November. It's about to get super busy in the store, and I expect I'll be reading not as much.
Well, our
in the coming
next
weeks,
one is
so-
going to come out like the day after Thanksgiving. And so why don't we plan to do a gift giving podcast with our next one?
Good idea.
We will do a podcast that is, if your person is this person, you should buy them one of these books. And so we will figure that out between now and then. And I'm glad that I just thought about that. You have about 2 weeks? Hannah does this expertly just offhand, so she won't have to prepare at all. I will have to maybe peruse what's coming out.
I also already wrote an article for the Cricket, which was this. So I kind of already did my homework.
Nice. That's convenient. I didn't even know about that. Usually Hannah gives me her Cricket articles to edit, but apparently this one was a little...
I was running late, so I was behind deadline.
Also, welcome to any new listeners who might have made it this far. We have recently been advertising our podcast in Reddit, and we have gained at least 2 new listeners in the last week. I can see them cranking through our back episodes. Maybe they've got here to the new one.
And hopefully if you've made it this far, you should rate us on wherever you listen, drop a review,
share it somewhere, right?
Share it with a friend, put it on social media.
If you're in the giving mood, the giving season is coming. If you are in a giving mood, you will say a nice thing about us on a podcast platform of your choice, because that would warm our hearts. Our hearts would grow 2 sizes right away.
Okay.
All right. Also, shout out to everybody who at the Crime Bake who wondered how it is that we could own a bookstore together without hating each other. Universally, everybody there thought siblings having to interact with each other would always go bad. So, hey, we've made it 2 whole years of podcasting without disliking one another. So clearly, we're a miracle.
And almost 4 years owning a business together.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. It's probably because we both like red reading glasses.
True. That's got to be the secret.
I bet it is. All right. See you next time,
parents.
everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving, whether it's in Quebec City or not. See you later.
Bye.